What if I told you that one of the simplest, most private habits you've let fade away after 60 could be quietly robbing you of your strength, energy, and even years of independence? You won't hear most doctors talk about this in your regular checkups, not because it's unimportant, but because it's uncomfortable for them, even though the science is crystal clear. And here's the surprising part. Ignoring this one natural practice doesn't just affect intimacy, it can set off a chain reaction in your body that accelerates aging from the inside out. I'm Dr. Nana, a urologist and men's health specialist with more than 2 decades of experience helping aging men restore their vitality, protect their prostate, and rediscover a sense of connection not just with their partners, but with themselves. Over the years, I've reviewed thousands of cases where seniors who abandoned this practice experienced a preventable decline in health. This isn't about locker room talk or morality debates, it's about hard science and your well-being. You might think self-pleasure doesn't matter anymore at this stage of life, but you'd be wrong. This simple, private act plays a powerful role in regulating testosterone, reducing stress hormones, maintaining sexual function, and keeping your mind sharp. When it disappears from your life, your body starts paying a silent tax. Prostate circulation slows, stress hormones build up, and brain-derived neurotrophic factors, the proteins that keep your brain healthy, drop. Soon, unexplained fatigue sets in. Recovery from illness takes longer. And no, these aren't just coincidences. Today, I'm going to walk you through exactly how your physiology changes when you remove this health practice from your life. We'll talk about the real risks to your heart, your brain, and even your emotional resilience, because the truth is, your sexual health is inseparable from your overall vitality. Before we get started, make sure you're subscribed to Senior Health Boost and have notifications turned on. I share clear, research-backed advice designed for men over 60 who want to stay strong, sharp, and independent. If this matters to you, type 1 in the comments. If not, type O. Let's see where our community stands. Now, let's begin with the first and most overlooked consequence of stopping: how it quietly accelerates muscle loss, drains your energy, and leaves you physically weaker. In my 25+ years in men's health, I've learned one undeniable truth. The body never stops needing intimacy just because the calendar moves forward. When sexual activity fades, something alarming starts happening beneath the surface. Your muscles, the very tissue that lets you stand tall, lift groceries, walk with ease, and maintain independence, begin wasting away faster than nature ever intended. And this isn't just about libido. It's about physical strength, longevity, and your ability to take care of yourself in the years ahead. I'll never forget Harold, a retired contractor, 82 years old, widowed, and once proud of the strength that built homes across 3 counties. When he came into my clinic, his gait had slowed to a shuffle. He couldn't even twist open a jar of peanut butter. In just 2 years after losing his partner and becoming completely sexually inactive, he'd lost 12 pounds of lean muscle mass without changing his diet. That case made me dig deeper into what was really happening. Then came Margaret, 76, a widow living alone since her husband passed away. She complained of constant fatigue and found herself struggling to carry bags from the store. Her grip strength had dropped by nearly 40% in just 18 months. Tests showed advanced sarcopenia, age-related muscle loss, far more severe than expected for her age. Her hormone levels were abnormally low. No intimacy, no release, and her body was quietly shutting down key systems. Here's what the science shows. Sexual activity, including self-pleasure, triggers a surge of anabolic hormones like growth hormone and testosterone. These hormones signal your body to protect muscle tissue, rebuild after strain, and keep you moving. Without these hormonal boosts, your ability to maintain muscle rapidly declines. And remember, testosterone is already naturally decreasing with age, removing all sexual activity speeds that drop dramatically. You lose not only strength, but also the natural defenses that protect you from muscle-wasting conditions. And that's when independence starts slipping away. In the next part, I'll show you exactly why this decline hits harder than most men realize, and how it ties directly to your overall health. In the last section, we saw how losing intimacy can trigger muscle loss, sap your energy, and quietly erode your independence. But the story doesn't stop there, because the longer this decline continues, the more damage it does to nearly every system in your body. By the time a person reaches 80, almost half of all adults are already showing signs of sarcopenia, the age-related loss of muscle mass and strength. And with sarcopenia comes a dramatic rise in falls, fractures, hospital visits, and permanent mobility issues. Once this process begins, it becomes a vicious cycle. Less muscle means less movement, and less movement accelerates even more muscle loss. Clinical research now backs what many experts in aging medicine have long suspected: sexual activity, even in the form of masturbation, plays a measurable role in preserving physical strength later in life. This isn't speculation or guesswork. Multiple large-scale studies confirm it. Older men who remain sexually active consistently show stronger muscles, healthier hormone profiles, and more stable mobility compared to those who stop completely. One landmark analysis published in a leading geriatric journal revealed a surprisingly strong correlation between sexual function and hand grip strength in men over 65, a measure scientists often use as a predictor of overall vitality and longevity. Another long-term study found that men engaging in regular sexual activity had significantly higher testosterone and growth hormone levels, both of which are absolutely essential for maintaining lean muscle, preventing frailty, and supporting physical independence. Here's why that matters. Every time your body experiences sexual arousal and release, your endocrine system responds by triggering a surge of the very hormones your muscles rely on to stay firm, functional, and responsive. Without those regular hormonal signals, the body's ability to preserve muscle tissue weakens. But the effects go far beyond muscle tone. When muscle breaks down faster than it should, the entire body begins to suffer. Your metabolism slows, meaning you burn fewer calories and store more fat. Blood sugar regulation becomes less efficient, increasing your risk for insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes. Bone density begins to drop, leaving your skeletal frame more fragile and prone to fractures. Even your heart feels the strain, because the cardiovascular system depends on strong muscles to support healthy circulation and overall stamina. Sexual inactivity quietly raises the risk for hospitalization, loss of mobility, and ongoing dependency on others for basic daily tasks. I've seen men who once played tennis twice a week, hiked mountain trails with their grandchildren, or carried groceries in from the car without thinking, slowly lose that spark. And it wasn't simply because they were getting older. It was because their bodies had stopped receiving the biological signals that intimacy, yes, even solo intimacy, once provided. When sexual expression disappears completely, the body slips into an understimulated state. It shifts from building and maintaining to conserving and declining. And here's a point that's important to say out loud: masturbation is not shameful. It's not something to hide from or feel guilty about. For many seniors, it's one of the last, most effective, and safest tools for naturally stimulating the hormones that keep the body resilient, without pills, without injections, and without side effects. Think of it as a form of self-care backed by solid science. If you've been feeling weaker than you used to, if stairs seem steeper than they once were, if you've noticed your arms and legs growing smaller despite eating the same meals, it's worth asking, could your sexual health be part of the equation? I'd genuinely like to hear from you. Have you noticed a drop in your strength or energy over the past few years? Do you believe changes in your intimacy habits might have played a role? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your story might be the exact encouragement someone else needs to start thinking differently about their own health. Now, let's move deeper, because muscle health is only one part of this picture. Sexual activity is also tied directly to two of the body's most powerful repair agents, testosterone and growth hormone. These aren't just sex hormones. They are your body's internal maintenance crew, working around the clock to rebuild tissue, regulate mood, sharpen focus, and keep you functioning at your best. And when that system is left dormant, the results can be devastating. I think of Robert, a 79-year-old patient who came to see me not long ago. Robert was sharp-minded, thoughtful, and endlessly curious, the kind of man who read 3 newspapers every morning and always had a question ready for me at each appointment. But during a recent routine visit, something was different. As he leaned forward in his chair, his eyes welled up. In a voice barely above a whisper, he said, "Dr. Nana, I feel like I'm slipping away." He went on to explain that for months he hadn't been able to sleep through the night. His mood swung unpredictably. Some days he felt on edge and irritable, other days completely flat and unmotivated. He had no drive, no focus, and described the sensation as if a heavy fog had settled over his thoughts. This wasn't memory loss, and it wasn't dementia. After a full workup, the truth came to light. Robert and his wife had stopped all forms of sexual intimacy 3 years earlier. No physical closeness. No solo activity. Nothing. His lab results painted a clear picture: deeply suppressed testosterone levels, elevated cortisol, the body's primary stress hormone, and irregular patterns in the neurotransmitters that regulate mood, motivation, and sleep. And here's the thing, Robert's situation is far more common than most people realize. Many men assume that sexual activity is something you outgrow or simply don't need once you reach a certain age. But your biology strongly disagrees. The truth is, sexual stimulation, including masturbation, activates a cascade of powerful neurochemical processes in the body. It sparks the release of oxytocin, which calms your nervous system and fosters feelings of connection and safety. It boosts dopamine, which fuels motivation, drive, and focus. It increases serotonin, the neurotransmitter that stabilizes mood and helps regulate healthy sleep cycles. And it triggers endorphins, your body's own natural painkillers and stress relievers. In Robert's case, the lack of these chemical signals started a dangerous chain reaction. It began with sleepless nights and emotional flatness, but it didn't stop there. Without testosterone and growth hormone to help repair tissue and keep his metabolism active, his muscle tone began to fade. Without serotonin and dopamine in healthy supply, his motivation slipped away. And with elevated cortisol, his body stayed in a low-grade stress state that only accelerated the decline. That's the hidden cost of letting intimacy vanish completely. It's not just about desire, it's about the machinery that keeps your body and mind operating at their peak. And once that machinery shuts down, getting it started again becomes much harder. In the next section, we're going to break down exactly how testosterone and growth hormone work as your body's repair system, and why keeping them active no matter your age might be one of the most important decisions you make for your long-term health. In the last section, we explored how hormonal signals act as your body's repair crew, protecting muscle, mood, and motivation. But when those signals fade, the damage spreads into nearly every corner of your health, often without you realizing what's happening. It often starts quietly, with sleep. Disrupted hormone signals throw off your body's natural rhythm, leaving you tossing and turning at night. You wake up tired, groggy, and easily irritable. This lack of deep, restorative sleep sends your stress hormone cortisol soaring. And when cortisol stays elevated for too long, it begins to chip away at your immune system. Your body slips into a state of silent inflammation. Small aches linger for weeks. Cuts and bruises heal slower. Energy drains more quickly, and even simple tasks feel heavier than they should. Then the mental wear and tear begins. With dopamine levels running low, your drive fades. The spark that once pulled you out of bed each morning dims. Suddenly, things that used to bring joy feel like chores. Your brain struggles to focus, and even small decisions start to feel overwhelming. This isn't about weak willpower, it's pure chemistry. At the same time, oxytocin, the hormone that strengthens emotional bonds, remains low. Without it, connecting deeply with others becomes harder, even with the people you love most. Loneliness creeps in slowly. Anxiety grows. Emotional disconnection becomes the new normal. And when your body's delicate chemical balance slips too far, the risks multiply: depression, early cognitive decline, and faster biological aging. Many seniors find themselves not only less mobile, but also more isolated, more dependent, and unsure how they got there. But it doesn't have to stay that way. I think of Sarah, a 74-year-old widow who came to me with persistent fatigue and a lingering low mood. She hadn't experienced any kind of sexual intimacy, partnered or solo, for almost a decade. After a private, compassionate conversation, she decided to try something she hadn't considered in years: self-pleasure. Within months, her body began to respond. She started sleeping through the night. Her mind felt lighter, her energy steadier, her sense of purpose renewed. Lab work confirmed what she already felt: her hormone profile had improved significantly. Under her doctor's guidance, she even reduced her antidepressant dosage. This wasn't magic. This was biology doing exactly what it's meant to do when given the right stimulus. There's a damaging myth out there that sexual activity in older adults is unnecessary, inappropriate, or even shameful. The truth is the opposite. Regular sexual stimulation, including masturbation, isn't indulgence. It's one of the simplest, most natural tools we have for maintaining hormonal balance, mental clarity, and emotional well-being. Avoiding the topic only delays healing, and that silence can shorten not just your emotional health span, but your physical lifespan as well. And the consequences don't stop with mood or energy. These same hormonal disruptions ripple deep into your cardiovascular system. When hormone levels drop from lack of sexual stimulation, the effects go far beyond motivation or focus. They directly impact your heart and blood vessels, quietly raising your risk for serious cardiovascular problems. Here's why. Sexual activity naturally stimulates the cardiovascular system, giving your heart and vessels a gentle, regular workout that supports flexibility, healthy blood pressure, and smooth circulation. Remove that stimulus, and the system begins to lose tone and resilience. Over time, this silence inside the body creates real, measurable damage. James, a 68-year-old retired executive, learned this the hard way. 6 months after he suffered a heart attack, he came to my office. His recent labs showed a sharp rise in blood pressure and noticeable arterial stiffness changes that had happened in less than a year. The biggest difference? He had stopped all sexual activity both with his partner and alone after struggling with erectile dysfunction. Embarrassed and frustrated, he avoided intimacy entirely, thinking it was safer to do nothing than to try and fail. But that silence took a heavy toll. In the next section, we'll uncover exactly how this loss of sexual activity speeds up cardiovascular decline and, more importantly, what you can do to protect your heart and circulation starting today. When James finally opened up, he was stunned to learn that sexual inactivity wasn't just a harmless personal choice, it had played a direct role in his heart's decline. Most people don't realize it, but the cardiovascular system thrives on regular stimulation. It needs movement, strong blood flow, and rhythmic demand to stay flexible and responsive. Sexual activity, whether with a partner or through self-pleasure, provides exactly that. During these moments, your heart rate rises, blood vessels expand, and muscles contract in coordinated rhythm. This combination improves circulation, keeps blood vessels elastic, and strengthens the heart muscle itself. There's also a critical biochemical benefit. Sexual stimulation triggers the release of nitric oxide, one of the body's most important molecules for heart health. Nitric oxide helps blood vessels relax and widen, lowering resistance so blood can flow freely. It reduces clot risk, improves oxygen delivery to tissues, and keeps arteries functioning as they should. Without regular releases of nitric oxide, vessels gradually stiffen, circulation weakens, and blood pressure creeps upward. These aren't random changes, they're signs that your cardiovascular system is being deprived of essential support. Research confirms this link. Men who remain sexually inactive face a significantly higher risk of heart disease, stroke, and even premature death. These numbers aren't just statistics, they represent lives diminished or cut short, often because the issue began in silence and embarrassment. While the patterns differ between men and women, the damage to the heart can be profound in both. For women, the absence of sexual stimulation means reduced natural estrogen production, which accelerates cardiovascular aging. Studies show postmenopausal women who remain sexually active maintain better heart function, lower blood pressure, and stronger arterial elasticity than those who become completely inactive. The activity itself keeps hormone-sensitive systems from shutting down too early. For men, the risks take a different path but lead to equally serious outcomes. Sexual inactivity causes testosterone levels to drop, and lower testosterone doesn't just affect desire, it strikes directly at heart health. Reduced testosterone is linked to higher cardiovascular risk and impaired blood vessel function. Over time, this can contribute to erectile dysfunction, which then fuels a vicious cycle. The fear of not performing leads to avoidance, which further weakens the heart, repeating the loop with even greater damage. And the effects aren't limited to lab results, they show up in daily life. You might find yourself winded after a short walk, or feeling drained before the day is half over. Even getting out of a chair can require more effort than it once did. These aren't simply normal signs of aging, they're symptoms of a cardiovascular system that isn't getting enough stimulation to stay strong. As fatigue sets in, subtle lifestyle changes follow. You might turn down invitations, skip social events, or avoid outings altogether. Slowly, isolation takes hold, and your world begins to shrink. The most frustrating part: many doctors treat only the surface symptoms: high blood pressure, poor circulation, low stamina, without ever asking whether sexual inactivity could be the hidden root cause. To many, people silently accept declining heart function as an unavoidable part of getting older. But that's not the whole story. In many cases, heart health can be improved, sometimes dramatically. One of the most overlooked ways is by restoring regular sexual stimulation. Even self-pleasure can reignite the body's natural support systems for cardiovascular health. Remember, your heart is a muscle. Like any muscle, it responds to consistent, healthy activity. With regular stimulation, blood pressure can improve, circulation strengthens, and energy levels begin to rise again. If fear, shame, or misunderstanding has kept you inactive, know this: it's not too late. Your body can still respond, and your heart still wants to work for you. But cardiovascular decline is only part of the picture. There's another consequence of sexual inactivity that many seniors endure quietly, one that can make every step, every movement, more difficult: chronic, escalating pain. What's rarely discussed is that your body comes with its own built-in pain relief system, and it relies heavily on one thing: consistent sexual stimulation. Let me introduce you to Eleanor. Eleanor was 81, a retired nurse, fiercely independent, razor sharp, and proud of it. But when she walked into my office not long ago, her eyes were brimming with tears. "Dr. Nana, the medication isn't working anymore," she said. "I hurt all over. I'm exhausted, and I can't sleep." She'd been battling arthritis for years. Painkillers had once offered relief, but over time, their effects faded. Sleep became fragmented, fatigue unrelenting. It felt like nothing could touch the discomfort. During a longer checkup, she mentioned something she hadn't thought was relevant. After her husband passed away 5 years earlier, she'd completely shut down sexually: no intimacy, not even private touch. The worsening pain had started shortly afterward. This isn't unusual. Sexual inactivity doesn't just create loneliness or emotional distance, it changes your body's chemistry. Without stimulation, the brain produces far fewer of its natural pain relievers: endorphins, oxytocin, and other opioid-like compounds that calm the nervous system. These aren't just feel-good chemicals, they physically block pain signals along the same neurological pathways that pain medications target only naturally, without side effects or the risk of dependence. Any kind of sexual activity, including self-pleasure, can trigger their release. Levels rise during arousal and peak at orgasm, often leaving behind hours of reduced pain, deeper sleep, and a calmer, more relaxed body. When that stimulation stops, so does this protection. The result? Your system goes quiet, pain sensitivity increases, discomfort lingers longer, and medications often fall short because your body is no longer helping itself. Studies show that older adults who remain sexually active report less chronic pain and higher pain tolerance, not by chance, but because their bodies are still producing the chemistry needed to defend against pain. When that chemistry is gone, the effects reach beyond discomfort. Nights become longer and more restless. Mornings begin with stiffness and soreness. Physical suffering intensifies, but so does emotional fatigue. Without enough endorphins, you don't just hurt more, you start living differently. For Eleanor, that meant relying more and more on medication. Side effects crept in: brain fog, digestive issues, even balance problems. She began losing confidence in her daily activities. She stopped walking her dog. She stopped visiting friends. Gradually, her world shrank. That's the part many people miss. When pain rises and pleasure disappears, the emotional cost is just as real as the physical one. Disconnection deepens. Low energy turns into low mood. Chronic pain feeds depression, and anxiety builds. The spark that makes you feel human fades. This is the physiological trap. Less pleasure leads to less movement. Less movement worsens pain. Pain leads to sleepless nights, and fatigue feeds the decline. Soon, the risk of long-term disability, and even early death, begins to creep upward. But Eleanor's story didn't end there. With gentle encouragement, she took small steps to reconnect with her body without shame, without pressure. Just simple, regular moments of touch and pleasure that reawakened her brain's natural pharmacy. By her 3rd month, she was sleeping through the night. Arthritis flare-ups became less frequent. Her pain medication use dropped by 60%. And the change wasn't just physical. She smiled more, laughed more, and her voice carried energy again. "I wish someone had told me this earlier," she said. "I suffered for years because I thought stopping all intimacy was the proper thing to do." But your body doesn't care about society's taboos. It cares about chemistry. And when you remove sexual activity, especially self-pleasure, you take away one of your nervous system's most powerful tools for coping with pain. Pain doesn't have to control your life. You have more influence than you've been led to believe. But pain is only part of the story. In the next section, we'll go deeper into something even more personal: how the same inactivity can begin to erode your memory, clarity, and focus. These aren't small changes, they strike at the very core of who you are. Arthur once ran a thriving company. He gave orders with confidence, led hundreds of employees, and made decisions that shaped entire markets. But at 72, his hands now tremble not from age, but from anxiety. He avoids looking his wife in the eye, not because he doesn't love her, but because he dreads the moment she might reach for him in bed. The man who once commanded boardrooms now feels paralyzed by a quiet, shame-filled question: what if I can't perform? What if I disappoint her? Arthur's fear wasn't irrational, it came from real changes he'd never spoken about. Over time, he had stopped touching himself entirely. At first, he thought it was simply no longer necessary. Then came avoidance, then shame. And before long, the man who had carried himself with effortless poise couldn't bear the thought of being vulnerable in an intimate moment. What Arthur experienced is what I call somatic estrangement, a deep emotional disconnection from your own body. It happens gradually and is common among men who silently fear sexual failure. That fear convinces you to stop trying. You withdraw from intimacy. Even self-pleasure begins to feel foreign, or worse, pointless. But this isn't just emotional, it comes with a biological cost. Sexual activity, including masturbation, plays a critical role in regulating stress. It triggers your parasympathetic nervous system, the branch responsible for rest, calm, and recovery. When you stop altogether, you lose a natural, built-in tool for lowering cortisol and stabilizing your mood. Without it, tension builds. Studies show men who remain sexually active tend to have lower cortisol levels, better stress management, and sharper mental clarity. They sleep more soundly, and their thinking stays more focused. When this outlet disappears, stress doesn't just linger, it compounds. It begins showing up in your appetite, your sleep quality, your energy levels. And it starts chipping away at your confidence far beyond the bedroom. That's exactly what happened to Arthur. His self-doubt began with his body, but it didn't stay there. He became quieter in conversations, less eager to socialize, less involved with his grandkids. The man who once led with certainty now felt like a shadow of himself. This shift didn't come from illness, it came from disconnection, emotional, physical, and sexual. And it's far more common than most people admit. Margaret's story is different but just as telling. She spent most of her life caring for others, her children, her husband, her aging parents. At 69, her home finally grew quiet. For the first time in decades, she had space to breathe. But instead of peace, she found something unexpected: anxiety. She began feeling nervous for no clear reason. Driving made her palms sweat. Walking into a grocery store set her heart racing. Sleep became shallow and restless. What had changed? Margaret had slowly shut down the part of herself that once made her feel alive, grounded, and whole: her sexual self. After menopause and her husband's passing, she decided that chapter of her life was over. She stopped touching herself, stopped thinking of herself as a sensual being. She believed that was natural at her age. But without realizing it, Margaret had severed the connection between her body and mind. That disconnection didn't just erase pleasure, it began eroding her confidence, her sense of identity, and her emotional stability. What she assumed was harmless had quietly turned into a daily battle with fear, tension, and uncertainty. The truth is, the human body isn't designed to shut down emotionally once life slows down. Sexual energy, intimacy, and self-connection aren't luxuries, they're part of how we stay whole. In the next section, we'll explore why this mind-body connection matters more than most people realize and how reigniting it can restore clarity, focus, and even memory in ways that might surprise you. Your body craves connection, especially with itself. And one of the simplest, most natural ways to nurture that connection is through self-pleasure. This is not about lust. It's not about vanity. It's about care. Real, emotional, and physical care. When you give yourself permission to engage in this simple act, you're sending a profound signal to your nervous system: I'm safe. I'm alive. I still belong to myself. Biologically, you're triggering the release of powerful, mood-lifting chemicals like dopamine, which fuels motivation and joy, and oxytocin, which deepens feelings of calm, safety, and connection. You're also lowering cortisol, the stress hormone that, when left unchecked, can quietly wear down your heart, weaken your immune system, and rob you of energy. For seniors, even moderate sexual activity, whether with a partner or solo, has been consistently linked to lower blood pressure, better mood, steadier sleep, and greater emotional resilience. When Margaret slowly began to let herself reconnect physically, everything began to shift. Her anxiety softened. Nights became restful. She stopped, dreading the short drive to the grocery store. And perhaps most telling of all, she began smiling at her reflection again. Not out of vanity or pride, but out of recognition. She saw herself again. That's the beauty of this journey. It doesn't start with performance, with results, or with anyone else's expectations. It begins with one simple thing: permission. The permission to feel, to touch, to enjoy living in your own skin, without guilt, without shame, without apology. Self-pleasure can be that entry point. It carries no timetable, no rules, just an open door, back to yourself. And that reconnection can spark something extraordinary. It can restore your sense of worth. Margaret didn't just regain peace of mind. She rebuilt a part of herself she thought had been lost forever. That transformation didn't come from a pill, a supplement, or a therapist's prescription. It came from remembering a truth too many forget: her body still mattered. And if you've ever felt like pieces of you are fading, know this: reconnection starts with you. And it is never too late to begin. After more than 25 years in sexual health practice, I've witnessed a truth that rarely makes its way into public conversation. The heaviest burdens many seniors carry aren't always visible on a medical chart. They live in the quiet moments, in the man who no longer recognizes his reflection with pride, in the woman who feels disconnected from her own vitality and identity. Society often tells us these changes are just part of getting older, but your body tells a very different story. The truth is, abandoning your sexual health sets off a cascade of consequences that are not just aging. They are preventable physiological changes, clear signals from your body that it needs your attention. And here's the remarkable part: reconnection transforms lives. I've seen men and women in their 70s, 80s, even 90s rekindle vitality, not because they found youth, and not because they found a partner, but because they found the courage to give themselves permission. Your prostate health can improve. Your neural pathways can adapt and strengthen. Your emotional resilience can return. And it's not wishful thinking. Your body is wired to respond at any age. This practice is not indulgence. It's preventive healthcare. It boosts pelvic circulation, helps regulate cortisol, sharpens cognition, strengthens hormonal balance, and reaffirms the most essential truth: that you are still whole, still capable, still you. Cultural shame has no place in your well-being. Outdated beliefs, embarrassment, or fear should never stand in the way of your vitality. Reclaiming this part of yourself doesn't require youth, a partner, or perfection. It requires only curiosity, kindness, and the willingness to listen to your body. Start gently. Start today. Give yourself the respect you deserve, the attention your body is asking for, and the care your future self will thank you for. And if what I've shared today resonates with you, don't let the conversation end here. Leave a comment below. Type 1 if you believe it's time to change the way we talk about senior sexual health. Share this video with someone who might need the reminder that their body still matters. This isn't just about maintaining function, it's about honoring your wholeness, protecting your independence, and reclaiming joy in being alive. If you're ready to take the first step toward reconnection, I encourage you to stay with us here on Senior Health Boost. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and join a community committed to helping you live stronger, longer, and with more vitality than you thought possible. Your next chapter can be the most connected, most confident, and most vibrant one yet if you give yourself permission to begin. Because the truth is, you are worth it, every single day.